A couple weeks ago I posted the question, I'm a bartender with no college experience that is dating a nuclear physicist that makes $120,000 a year and it makes me feel inadequate. How do I overcome this? Turns out she was crazy and a huge liar. Do you have a crazy ex story? Way too late to the game. Maybe someone will learn from my experience, though. As a junior in HS, I broke up with my GF of a couple of years to start dating this cute girl. We'll call her Amy, because that was her name. She went to the Catholic school in town. She was also an 11th grader. 17. Way hot. Way fun. After a few months of awesome, her giving me jewelry as gifts, walking me home from school, sneaking out to spend the night in a motel, etc., etc., she started to get a little weird and clingy. She wouldn't ever let me call her, but called me constantly from other people's houses. Wanted to sneak into my house to spend the night, slept in my basement one night, under my bed one night, started to call at all hours. It was obvious that her parents had no control over her, and I was suspecting drug use. None of my friends knew her, even their friends at the Catholic school hadn't heard of her. Something was weird, but DMHS, it can blind you. I was getting near to breaking it off just to stop all of the weird, when one night I got a phone call. It was Amy's dad. We had a very weird talk. It turns out that she had run away from home the night we started dating, months ago, and stolen a bunch of stuff, including his paycheck, jewelry, oh crap, I was wearing his ring, and other stuff. She'd been couch surfing and running from the cops ever since, stealing, lying, cheating, way weird, crap. So, I told him I had the ring, and he could have it back. He wanted to sit down with me and talk about how to get her caught, or at least to get her to call him. I was really scared about my parents finding out what was up. I didn't want to be associated with her anymore, and I didn't want to get caught for all the crap we'd pulled, but I was worried for her. I told him to come right over. About 30 minutes later, there's a knock at my front door. This big guy was standing there when I answered. He said, "Hi, son. I need to talk to your little brother." I said, "I'm an only child." Blink, blink, blink. "Are you Magnavita?" I said, "Yeah, you must be Amy's dad." He blinked and said, "How old are you?" I said, 17. "Same age as Amy." He started to laugh and then stopped immediately. His face got really red when he realized I was serious. He came in, sat down with my folks and I, and then started with, "So, for starters, let me get this off my chest. Amy just turned 12 last week." Holy frick, that started a real shitstorm involving the cops, her friends, all middle schoolers. Oh, fuck, courts, her probation officer, my school counselors and principals. To this day, I am still stunned. As a decent looking, semi-popular 17-year-old dude, I dumped my longtime girlfriend for an 11-year-old runaway and then spent the next several months helping the cops track her down. TLDR. Frick. I dated a girl about 3 years ago that cheated on me and got pregnant by the guy she cheated on me with. She tried to smother me with a pillow in my sleep after I refused to stay with her. Looks like when faced with telling you the truth, she took the soft option. Girl I'd been dating a few months had a court date for regular child custody stuff. Not my kid, whatever. She doesn't come home that night. Find out through her friends her court date was a criminal trial for theft, forgery, and fraud. After prison for 3 years, I opted to delete her number. I dated a pathological liar for almost a year in high school. It wasn't until after we broke up that I realized how crazy she was. Here's a list of lies she pulled on me, her friends and family. 1. Lied about being in AP classes to make herself seem smarter. 2. Lied about having 2 best friends, were more like her imaginary friends, that always seemed to text me and back up her position during a fight. 3. Made up an elaborate story about this guy sneaking a kiss on her and professing his undying love in order to make me jealous so that I might see another guy in the picture and step up my game. 4. Lied about having a form of stomach cancer after we broke up in order to make me feel bad and take her back. 5. When that didn't work, she then claimed to be pregnant with my child. She went as far as to order a fake sonogram to convince me she was pregnant. 6. After the sonogram, I began to believe her and accepted the fact I might be a father in high school. She then went into surgery for her cancer and an accident happened and the child was lost. Because she had been convinced at the time, it really fricked me up that I had a child and lost it. 7. Lied about her father drunkenly hitting her and kicking her out of the house so that I could pity her and take her in. This is about a month and a half after losing the child. She tried to hit a chord in me cause my dad actually is an alcoholic. What she didn't expect was for me to finally call her out and call the cops on her dad just to have her lie unravel. Through pretty much all of this, her parents backed her up and only supported her lies, which made me fall for a lot of them. It wasn't until the last incident that her dad finally called me and told me the truth about his daughter being a pathological liar since the age of 3. I could go on for hours about how freaking insane this girl was with all the crap she pulled, but these are the major ones that I had to go through. I dated a guy for a year and a half, living with him for the last 6 months. We broke up the night he spit in my face, called me a W, and threatened me. A week later he had converted to Mormonism, and 3 months later he's engaged to a girl he'd known for a month. He lives in Utah now. Bullet dodged. That lad sounds like he's going places. All jokes aside, she may have been having a manic episode that night, which alcohol enhances. She should be admitted to the hospital considering the things that you've described. I had a friend that this happened to. Okay, it was me. You're only half as crazy if you can admit it. Not me, but an old boss of mine had a machete hanging on his wall as some sort of ornament. One ex used it on him. Didn't do much damage. He put it back on the wall. A few months later, another guy he was dating split his face open with it. When he healed, I suggested to him that he not put the machete back this time. And this is why I will never ever put sharp objects on display in my home. I dated a girl whose parents had died in a car accident when she was 8. After 2 years she told me that wasn't exactly true. She'd lied because her father had molested her when she was very little. After 6 more months she told me that also wasn't exactly true. She was just trying to keep me from talking to them because they hated her because, surprise, she was a liar and addict. We are no longer together. 6 months later she told you that wasn't exactly true. She wasn't really a addict, just a very bad liar. I dated a girl for a while that I actually knew for at least a year before ever transitioning from friend of friend to dating. I quickly came to realize she was a pathological liar, and she made no attempt to hide it from me. I mean, yes, she'd tell me all kinds of outrageous lies, but she'd also tell other people lies about US in front of me. One time we met some friends at a club and she immediately tells them that we'd spent the day in Canada. Like we'd driven 5 hours in the morning, spent the day, driven 5 hours back and were now meeting people in this trans-dimensional day that would have to be at least 40 hours long. People are looking at me like WTF and I'm just making the frick if I know face. Over the course of the few months we dated she'd told me her father was in prison and her mother was institutionalized. Neither true. Her brother was a junkie. Her brother lived with her, had a good job and was not a junkie. Her ex-husband was a addict. She had never been married. She worked for the governor's office. We were nowhere near the capital. Never found out what her real job was. She'd had a clitoris piercing accidentally torn out, which was why she had no clitoris. Except that she did. She loved anal sex. Would rather have anal than anything else. Never actually agreed to have anal sex with me. I could probably keep on for a while. I literally only dated her a couple of months before I had enough. I was trying to break up with her gently when I saw a tow truck hooking up to my car outside her apartment. So I bolted mid-let down saying "You're too crazy" over my shoulder as I ran. Not a crazy ex, but when I was a liberal Christian this guy named Eli and I considered dating once and he put me on hold to see what Jesus would have to say about it. So, I wait around for a couple months and he didn't feel like he was getting a green light from the big man upstairs. So he asks his mother to pray for us. We are 19 and in college together away from home. This strikes me as a huge red flag. His mother told us that she wasn't getting a sign either and revealed to me that this was the screening process the family went to in order to find the woman Eli that God chose for him. At first, Eli was devastated. and I was obviously quite offended, especially after he told me that God had someone better in store for him and I should be happy. We went our separate ways and I ended up getting married to one of my close friends and considered myself questioning the Christian faith, leaning towards atheism. He was horrified and we stopped talking as often. He remained single and ended up courting a nice Christian, more right-wing leaning and won his mother's approval girl that looked very similar to me, only to get rejected. He was heartbroken. What does Eli do to remedy this? He enlisted in the army and asked to be put on the front lines, because obviously God doesn't want him in a relationship at all and he is going to die alone. He said if he wasn't meant to have a family he may as well sacrifice himself for the good of our country. And yes, our army actually did put him on the front lines. Start a family or go shoot people, be shot at. These are the only two options in life. I know a guy, not my ex, I am a guy, like that. I loved torturing him to no end about his lies. Apparently he killed someone, is heavily invested in oil, ordered a custom BMW that has been on the way for 5 years, is setting up a worldwide organization to protect the world from evil. I have too much fun going along with his crap. I even helped him set up this organization. I put him in touch with some programmer friends I have so they could do some work for him. I warned them he is crazy first. He never actually asked them to do anything. I checked with them. I drove him to the bank because he does not have a car so he could open up a bank account and put about $200,000 in it for the use of the organization. Naturally I never saw the transfer or the opening of the account. Plenty more stuff as well. Oh, and I am officially part of this organization which is divided into a cell structure, so I am not allowed to know who else is in it. No one, I suspect. I am a little worried that I am going to end up part of some terrorist group and get arrested, but it's too much fun seeing where this is going. And to be clear, he is harmless, just crazy. Fun crazy. Fun crazy can turn to holy crap he has a goddamn battle axe and is coming after me crazy pretty quick. Be careful. My favorite quote from this post is she asked some 10-year-old kid on omegle.com if he wanted to put his little penis inside her, and the deal breaker was, like the deal breaker came after that. In my section at work, we had an inter-office chat program that connected to random people working in other sections of the country. Cue me the stupid 24-year-old, who has little experience with girls, but a lot of experience in chat rooms and how to garner attention. I get the attention of a girl in my section, and we start private chatting. 2 weeks later, she has broken up with her boyfriend, and said she'd like to date me. Cue shitstorm. Due to bad circumstances, I basically end up moving in with her after 1 month of dating with her and 2 roommates. She comes home with a puppy after living together for 3 weeks, and treats it like our baby, taking to it like it's a baby. I'm already thinking find a way out. After a total of 4 months, I secure living space away from her and break up with her. Within the same 3 days, she threatened to crash her Mustang into a tree while going 90 miles per hour if I didn't get back together with her, to telling my workplace that I'm horrible in bed, when we had sex maybe twice over 4 months due to her insecurities, and then finally to propositioning me for no strings attached sex, just so she could see me again. 2 months after I moved out and moved to another section at work, she was getting married to a man who couldn't meet her folks, because he couldn't leave state lines due to his parole. TL. DR. Don't dip your pen in company ink. Ever. Q. So while I was in high school, I started dating this girl. We'll call her X1. So when I first started dating X1, all my friends would tell me to not date her. I can do better than her and blah blah blah. But I was blinded by what I thought was love at the time. So we went on dating for a couple of years, and throughout those years I found out that she was a liar, manipulator, downright insane. She would always tell everyone that there is something physically wrong with her, i.e., back pain, bladder problems, knee problems and etc., when there was nothing wrong, except mentally. So after a couple of years of going out with her, I realize that she's no good for me. I try breaking up with her. She tries killing herself. I get back with her because I am young and I feel like that's the only way I can get her to not kill herself. So we're dating again, but I can't be in this relationship, so I break up with her again, and once again, she tries to kill herself. After trying a couple of times, Her parents finally decided to send her to a mental hospital, or so she told me. Once she got out of the mental hospital, she tried talking to me, and me being an idiot, I was there for her and tried to comfort her and talk to her and make her feel better. Her parents then moved her out to Florida because they believed that I was the reason their daughter was trying to kill herself. She told them that I was hitting her and making her feel like crap when I wasn't. A few weeks into her moving to Florida, her best friend that lived out there called me and told me that X1 has killed herself. I was devastated. I thought I was the reason that someone was dead. I was going crazy. The first girl I fell in love with was dead. I wanted to die. A week later, X1 calls me and tells me she was joking. She's still alive. So for a whole week I thought I was the reason someone died. I thought about committing suicide. Never talked to her again. That is one of the most fricked up things I've ever heard of. Sorry you had to go through that, man. I've kinda always wondered if there are Barney Stinson-esque women out there, boldly lying to men's faces to get them in bed. Now that I know the answer is yes, I feel guilty for finding this amusing. Sorry, dude. When I didn't go with her to get her wisdom teeth taken out, she refused to see me for a week, eventually claimed that she had died on the table from an allergic reaction, and cried that I wasn't there for what were nearly her final moments. When I told her I was spending one day of my wedding week hanging out with my childhood next door neighbor instead of her, she asked if there were any exposed beams in her basement. She was a subtle one sometimes. Multiple pregnancy scares despite always using protection. Various claims of terminal illness. Several instances of cutting herself after a fight with no visible wounds. The only non-sexual reason I put up with this madness was that I desperately wanted to believe and reap the benefits of her first outrageous lie, that Patrick Stewart was a family friend. That sounds fine and all, but I dated a girl who knew fricking Patrick Star. In high school, I dated a girl who I managed at a Blockbuster. She was a little older than me and physically out of my league. We dated for 3 months. One night, she was supposed to come over to my house to watch a movie after I got off work. She never showed. I called her, but no answer. Finally, her mother called me a few days later saying that my girlfriend never wanted to see me again. A few months after this happened, my boss came into the store and said that he found her. She decided to transfer to a different store. He then hesitated and asked if I really wanted to know the whole story. Turns out, she was engaged during the entire relationship to her stalker. I knew him as a stalker because he always texted her whenever we were together. So, I dropped it. Then, a few years after all of this happened, she got a hold of me. She called to apologize and catch up. She ended up marrying this guy only a month after we broke up. She became pregnant early on in the marriage. He was then arrested because he raped an underage girl and got her pregnant. After that, he and my ex got a divorce, not because of the rape, due to him being a homosexual. And lastly, he was a youth minister at the church my ex attended. So that's my crazy ex story. TLDR. Christian ex was engaged to a gay rapist of little girls during our entire relationship. I dated a complete lunatic for 3 years. She was subtly loony, and it kind of came in waves. When she wasn't a frick nut, she was rather pleasant. The problem was it became less and less good and more crazy. I honestly think there is something clinically wrong with her. Fun times. She still wants to be friends. But honestly, how do you remain friends with someone with a shifting reality who went so far as to blame me for causing her son's dad to overdose and die? I was dating this super hot guy. He was gorgeous, tall, athletic, killer abs. He was a little kinky too. We hadn't slept together yet, but we were swapping stories. He told me his ex-girlfriend got mad at her roommate, so she had him jerk off into the girl's food, and the girl ate it, without knowing. Fastest deal breaker ever. My first ever boyfriend told me that he donated one of his kidneys, had a dangerous heart condition, that his birth mother had died and his mother wasn't actually his mother, that he had a secret older sister who died of a H overdose, and that he used to be addicted to hard drugs. All lies. Believed all of it because I was a stupid naive high school girl. TLDR. Boyfriend was a freaking psycho. I was dumber than a box of rocks. I've been in a similar situation and you ought to know you weren't dumb. You were young and this was a learning experience that can only make you stronger. My entire story of my ex was crazy. The first 4 months, perfectly normal. We had a long distance relationship, which was slightly annoying, but I had just bought a house and she begged to let her move in with me. The day she moved in was the start of the most hellish year of my life. Things started out okay. She found a job right away, got fired within 2 weeks because she just stopped going to work. We had our housewarming party, claimed my best friend old roommate raped her, later found out it was consensual, started drinking super heavily, started having problems with Klonopin, became super psychotic, checked into a mental health facility after she tried to kill herself, had a Halloween party. She ended up lesying it up in our bed with some stupid T who was twice the amount of psycho as she was. For an audience of about 10 dudes BTW, she found her liquor of choice, Kentucky Gentleman. It's cheap and would get her nice and whacked. While I was away on business for work, she drank almost a whole fifth of kg, then decided she wanted to go visit her mother at 2 a.m. She stopped to take a pee on the side of the highway. Cop came up and got her for DUI. She did everything to turn my life into a living heck. I finally, after a year, had enough and broke up with her and told her she needed to move out. She had no place to go, no money, and her family wanted nothing to do with her. So what does she do? She goes on Plenty of Fish, finds herself some real classy dude, fricks him on my freaking couch while I am at work, and takes pictures of him with my camera. She tells me she will move out and move in with the new dude, but she has no money for rent or to move. I give her $800 for her first month's rent. I rent the moving truck. I pack all her crap and move it all by myself to her new place. I thought I had finally rid myself of her. 3 weeks later, she scales my fence, climbs up to my second level deck and breaks into my house to take a bath. I wake up at 3 a.m. to the sound of water being run in my bathroom. I open up the door and there is Captain Crazy in my bathtub, completely trashed and sobbing. I called the police for breaking and entering. Somehow the police thought that her story seemed more legit, that she owned the house and I was beating her up, so I wound up in handcuffs and slammed on the hood of my car. After I got the cops to understand the situation, they uncuffed me and freaking let that stupid bee go. I finally filled for a restraining order, and she left me alone for a whole year. Found out dude knocked her up. She waited until the day after the restraining order was over and started trying to get in touch with me to tell me that the baby might be mine. Turns out it wasn't. Greatest day of my life. She finally left me alone. TL. DR. Crazy bee. Life almost ruined. Life finally back to normal. This is more of a dodged a bullet story. I was texting 2 different guys from OkCupid. One of them said something about meeting up for gelato after he met with his parole officer. I then questioned him about having been in jail and he said he was joking. That same day he sort of fessed up to having been in jail, as well as hinting about his ex-girlfriend being the cause. I managed to deduce that he had beat the crap out of his girlfriend and was arrested for it. I erased his number and ignored him until he finally stopped texting me. Oh, and the other guy? He's now my fiance. As a gun owner myself, absolutely never acceptable to point a firearm, loaded or not, at another person. To me, that shows an immense amount of immaturity on her part. Not to mention the possibility that she was probably going for a kill shot. Better luck with the next one, OP. Maybe you'll find a better one at the gun range. I was scared shitless. I was in my bathroom and I heard her clacking my shotgun and I came out and it was pointed right at me. It wasn't loaded, but I had ammo in my nightstand. Your first hint should have been nuclear physicist earning 120k. They don't earn that much. Nuclear engineers on the other hand, in all seriousness, good on you for catching her in the crap. Some people just like to boast or make crap up to impress people. I don't understand it and doubt I ever will. People talk about all this crap and often don't have any idea what it means. When somebody that's lived half of it sits there and wonders if they're stoned for wanting to pretend they lived it to be badass. This is what really stuck in my craw. Maybe she works as a physicist, or at least at some sort of lab. But for a 26-year-old to be a nuclear physicist making that kind of money is absolutely laughable. That's when I knew the story was bunk. I dated a girl with borderline personality disorder bipolar for 2 years. We lived together for 1 year of that. Everything started out amazing. Hence the moving in. We got along great, laughed a lot, shared all the same interests. Just seemed perfect. Once we moved in, I found out she wasn't actually in school studying psychology like I had believed. She basically sat at home going in and out of varying states of mental sickness, a lot of it brought on by her very recklessly taking her medication. Ritalin, Adderall, clonazepam, Paxil. Because I had been with her a year already and pretty much in love, I decided that I need to help her. I tried to really help regulate how she took her medications and get her on a proper schedule. Encouraged her to find a job, enroll in school and so on. The whole time it felt like I was a live-in nurse, constantly dealing with her lows, enjoying the highs. It really felt like I was coming home to a wild tiger most days, not knowing who I would find there. Some days I would come home and everything would be normal and we would have a great night. Other nights I would come home and she would be in fits of rage, paranoia, depression. I paid for everything. The house, the food, entertainment. I ended up losing a job because so much of my effort was put into trying to help her that I completely lost track of helping myself and making sure my life was on track. Towards the end of our relationship she was doing well. She had a job and liked it. She was enrolled for school the coming September and then one day she completely relapsed and went batcrap insane. She was completely unapproachable. I ended up staying at my parents' just because I needed to stay away. She ended up cheating on me with someone from her work, telling me all about it and almost seemed like she was enjoying seeing how much it hurt me. I didn't talk to her for a couple weeks. I was so heartbroken. End up getting a call from her just bawling her eyes out. Could hardly even speak. Finally she got out that the guy she cheated on me with gave her herpes. I was pretty shocked and didn't know how to react. Said I had to go and would call her later. As soon as I hung up the phone I was just dying in fits of laughter. LOL'd my way all the way into feeling better about everything. DTL. DR. Good times, crazy, cheats, herpes, LOL. At the animal rehab place I work at, a husband divorced his wife and she took their golden Labrador dog. She starved the dog 1% away from death and showed it to the husband as a punishment for him divorcing her. I saw a picture of the dog and it was legit a pile of bones just laying on the ground, too weak to lift its head anymore. She went to jail and the dog is in our shelter fully healthy again. Psychopath B. My ex-girlfriend was similar to yours in that she would surprise me on a lot of occasions. One of the best, or worst, times was when she came over to my parents' house for dinner. It was actually only the second time they had met her, and I told her to try and make an impression. The girl was enthusiastic if anything, and was eager to please, so she said she would do her best. When we got there, everything was actually going pretty well. She hadn't forgot their names, got on great with the family dog, and hadn't burped or farted yet. It was too good to be true. As the first course was being served, that is, literally as my mom was bringing over some Parma ham and mozzarella cheese. She's Italian and her cooking is the crap. X jumps up from the table and yelps. Horrified, I look over at her as she stumbles away from the chair and towards my mother, kicking furiously at something underneath the table. It's all in a slow motion as I realize that my ex is kicking at her own handbag, which was now emptied all over the floor, and huge freaking dildo has just spilled out into the open. I scream in shock as she reaches down, grabs the dildo, and throws it with some force at my father, who has just sat open-mouthed for this whole episode. Open-mouthed. The yellow dildo hurtles towards him, and actually partly enters his gaping mouth. I guess that was the climax of that particular dinner. I remember this story. You made it sound like the relationship was pretty good. I'm glad you took the time to update us, especially considering how much has escalated. What were some early indicators that she was crazy? If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.